thank you, Julius for agreeing to be a subject for our John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation documentary project.
Well, it's an honor.
Thank you.
I'm happy that I'm here.
Well, we're going to start off. We just want to get some background information on you as far as your family, brother, sister, ancestors.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and start.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was born here in Tulsa at Moulton Hospital, May 5, 1935. Now, my family, on my mother's side, started migrating to Tulsa in 1919. I had one uncle, William Shakespeare Latimer, who was a graduate of Tuskegee Institute. He came to Tulsa after he married a young lady from Tulsa. Okay, and he had been educated at Tuskegee, and he was an architectural type as well as a builder. Okay, and in 1920, he encouraged another uncle of mine to come to Tulsa. That was Jaffe Clinton Latimer, and we called him JC, my uncle JC. And together they had just finished the Mount Zion Baptist Church about 6 weeks to 2 months prior to the 1921 race riot. And they were members of the Mount Zion Baptist Church. Okay. Now, my mother and her other siblings came to Tulsa after the race riot. They came in November of 1921. Okay, and they came because my Uncle Sheikh, as we called him, he told my grandfather that there was plenty of work in Tulsa and that it would be beneficial for him to bring the family on to Tulsa. So they subsequently, my mother and her twin sister and her youngest brother, Mr. Fred Latimer, who worked for the post office here. He was a second or third postal employee hired here in Tulsa. So that's how my mother's family got to Tulsa. Now, my father's was born in Locksburg, Arkansas. And he came to Tulsa about 1928. He was about 20 or 21 years old, and he just hopped the freight train and came to Tulsa. And he started off as a cook down at the old Cecil Hospital, which was located down on Elgin Street near 11th Street. Okay, and in the 1930s, about 1933 or 34, he started to work for a man named H.L. Prey at the Tulsa Winch. And during the war, my father built the largest winch that the Tulsa Winch built for the Army, and I think it was a model 5500, I think. I'm not sure about that, but I do remember him mentioning a 5500 winch, and he built one a day. I mean, one per hour, 10 hours per day for about, from like 1938 or so until, I don't know, until 1940, 38 to 48, you know, and then they cut back after the war. I do have 7 other brothers and sisters in my family. And I will not name all of them, but we all aspired to go to college and get educated. I was the first one to graduate from college, and my 3 of my younger siblings all have college degrees. So we're especially proud of that because my mother had the job of taking care of her mother, and she is the only member of their family that did not graduate from Tuskegee Institute. Okay? But her children have done pretty good.
Yes.
Okay? So that's a little about my ancestors and my family.
Okay.
And we can talk about other things if you have other
sure.
questions that you have.
As you mentioned earlier about your uncles working and building Mount Zion Baptist Church, which is also a historical landmark. This documentary study focuses on how was that story passed down through the different generations?
Well, my 2 uncles, when we were working, we would talk about it. Okay, but as far as there being, a general discussion on the race riot, there wasn't any. There wasn't any. I mean, amongst other family members, we found out about it because my one uncle, Jaffe Clinton Latimer, he was arrested during the riot. Okay, he was arrested, and he was interned down at 2nd and Boulder. That's where one of the facilities was. One of the jailhouses was at 2nd and Boulder, and then I think there was a county facility down at 6th, either 5th and Boulder or 6th and Boulder. And what's unique about my Uncle JC's arrest was that the person that he was working for showed up at work the day after he was arrested, and my uncle wasn't there. And that was strange to the person he was working for. And so he asked, "Where's JC?" And some of the guys told him, "Well, we don't know, but he may have gotten picked up walking home from work." So the company owner, he went down to the jailhouse to see if my uncle was in jail. And my uncle tells this story, and he just falls out laughing. So the guy walks into the jailhouse, and he said, "Do you have a person by the name of, no, he said, "Do you have my brother in here?" And the guy asked him, says, "Well, who is your brother?" He said, "JC Latimer." Okay. And he hollered back to the back and says, "Do you all have a JC Latimer back there?" And some guy answers, says, "Oh yeah, he's here." So he said, "My brother has to go to work. Let him out of here so that we can go and get this building finished that we're working on." So now this guy is a white guy, and my uncle is not tan, he's dark. I mean, he is really dark. And so my uncle comes out of the back, and the guy says, "Come on, JC, let's go to work." So they went on to work.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was one of our stories that we heard. My uncle, he would just fall out laughing. So this guy was just, white as a sheet, talking about he wants to let my brother out of here, we've got to go to work. So, but they rebuilt the Mount Zion Baptist Church, and there was an older brother of mine, well, two older brothers of mine. We learned our skills on the Mount Zion Baptist Church. See, because they started to rebuild the Mount Zion Baptist Church several years after the race riot. The first thing they had to do was pay the mortgage off that they had on the church that was burned down. Okay? And they proceeded to do that, and over in the late 30s, they began to rebuild the Mount Zion Baptist Church back. And the person who assisted them with the finances was the Broadhurst Foundation. The Broadhurst Foundation would let them have, a certain amount of money, and they would use that up, And meanwhile, they're paying off the old mortgage at the same time, and they're building the church, rebuilding the church at the same time. And simultaneously, they rebuilt the church and paid off every penny of the old mortgage and repaid the Broadhurst Foundation for what they had loaned them, and it all turned out good. But I learned to paint, to lay brick, to do carpentry work, and I picked up some skills, thank God, for the Mount Zion Baptist Church. Okay?
Did your family discuss what were the social conditions and economic conditions for African Americans after the 1921 race riot? How do people live?
It was a struggle for everybody, because they essentially just burned down the entire area. Miss Mabel Little had just finished a new home. It got burned to the ground. And so my uncles built her first home. Then they had to build her another home after she accumulated enough funds in order to get it built, because she had her beauty shop. She was a beautician, and she had her beauty shop in her home. So, they had to just make do. But no one ever recovered anything from the race riot. They didn't recover any insurance. And so loans were hard to get. So it was a very difficult time. But like I said, my father didn't even come to Tulsa until 7, 8 years after the race riot. And my mother came 5 months after the riot. But my two uncles and my grandfather was a carpenter also. So they did make it, My two uncles, they were veterans of World War I also. They, Jackie Clinton Latimer and W.S. Latimer, they actually met up over in France during World War I. Okay? So, but everybody had a hard time. It was a struggle, but there wasn't, a lot of conversation going on about the race riot and the situation that, black people were in after the riot. It was a struggle.
Now, where did people live after the race riot who lost land, homes, burned out?
They lived in cardboard boxes and any other kind of shelter that they could put up, that they would be protected from the weather elements, according to my uncles. But they built some temporary, shelter deals as fast as they could. But a lot of people just left. They just left because the Greenwood area was just barren, almost.
And how did the Greenwood area, what type of revival took place?
Well, they eventually they started, building back the structures, that because they had several craftsmen, and both of my uncles were bricklayers and carpenters, and they had several other people in Tulsa that had graduated from Tuskegee, so they were not short of skilled individuals. They had plumbers, they had carpenters, they had bricklayers, they had electricians, okay? So they had all of the skills that were required to rebuild a city. And that's what they and that's what they did. Right here where we're sitting was where the railroad came through, and my uncle William Shakespeare's wife, his family rebuilt a brick building right here in this area. So they were not short of skilled workers, and they just persevered until they got the job done. John Hope Franklin's father, he set up his office in a tent.
B.C. Franklin.
B.C. Franklin set up his office in a tent, and that's where he operated from. Yeah. So.
Now, education-wise, how were the kids educated?
Well, the education for black children started in Tulsa in 1908, and there was a department store owner who got that effort going, okay? And one of the principal teachers was S.D. McCree, okay? And they started the elementary school in 1908, okay? And by 1912, they had a few students who were ready for high school, okay? They had Dunbar Elementary School, and consequently they had Dunbar High School before they had a Booker T. Washington High School. It was just a 4-room frame building, okay? And the only teacher, or the first teacher and only teacher for those students who were ready to go to high school was S.D. McCree. He taught all of the subject matter. He actually ended up being my homeroom teacher when I got to junior high school. Okay? Okay. E.W. Woods had graduated from a school there in Mississippi. Okay? And he had hitchhiked and rode the train, like a hobo on the train to get to Oklahoma, because he was in Memphis, Tennessee, and he saw this advertisement that said colored teachers needed in Oklahoma. Okay? His first night in Oklahoma was spent over in Sapulpa in a barn. Okay? He subsequently, this was in the summer, in the fall of 1912, he started teaching black children over in Sapulpa. Then in January or February of 1913, okay, he saw an advertisement for a principal over in Tulsa. And he applied for the job and got the job. So E.W. Woods taught in Sapulpa first, and then he came to Tulsa as the principal of the high school. And Booker T. graduated its first graduates in 1916. Okay, there were 3 people who graduated. Okay, and from there, the rest is history, because E.W. Woods developed one of the finest high schools for black or white children in the Southwest, probably in the country, okay? And they operated initially out of this 4-room frame school building.
Dunbar.
Okay, Dunbar. It's located right east of us here down on Hartford Street. Okay? All right, in 1918, E.W. Woods was successful at getting a brick building built for the high school in 1918. And they built it on Easton Street here, okay, which is where OSU is over there now, okay? And he was successful at what he was in developing a successful high school because he sent his graduates off to college. Okay? He had a motto of, you have to be better than 90% or 95% of the students and as good as the other 5. Okay? And he would encourage his students to go to college. He'd take money out of his pocket to help whomever was going to college, you know. I mean, he was a revered member of the community here in Tulsa. May have been the most respected, outside of B.C. Franklin, member of the community, okay? And when they graduated, he built a high school with his own graduates.
Kind of like
80% of the faculty of Booker T. Washington High School at one time were graduates of Booker T. Washington High School. They had a commitment to producing other students.
Yes.
Okay? And that made them very successful. Very successful, okay? And Booker T. Washington High School has outstanding graduates and people in this country that have achieved above and beyond the call of duty, really. John Hope Franklin is one of them, okay? Bill Spiller never played a game of golf in high school. Black people didn't play golf. You didn't have any place, weren't allowed on the golf course. Bill Spiller didn't play golf until he was out of college. He went to college at Wiley. Okay, graduated from Booker T in 1932. Okay, John Hope Franklin graduated in 1931. Okay, and Bill Spiller broke the color line with the PGA golf. Tiger Woods used to talk about Bill Spiller all of the time, and he used to. His opening comments was, in the first couple of tournaments, he was, I want to thank Mr. Spiller, Bill Spiller, for giving me this opportunity. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? And we have, Booker T has graduates like George Lithcott, who was head of the Caribbean Health Initiative for the government for years. Okay? They have other PhDs. I know the first female was WAC in the Navy is a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School. She has a PhD now, okay? But she was a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School. She was the first female or wave in the in the Navy. Okay? And that tradition that has existed there at Booker T. Washington High School, which was developed by E.W. Woods, you know, it says you have to put something back in order to get something out. And that's how Booker T ended up being a top-notch high school. The Booker T. Washington High School was actually, what is this? It's not certified. What does it say? Accredited. Booker T. Washington High School was the first high school in the city of Tulsa to be accredited by the North Central School Accreditation Association. The first one before Central. Okay. In 1925.
And that's in the black community?
Right, of Tulsa. Yeah.
Well, give us some background on your education background, your experience.
Well, I was, I'm a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School. I was the valedictorian of my class in 1953. And I did my college work at the University of Pittsburgh. Okay, I was the first African-American basketball player for the University of Pittsburgh. I started every game for 4 years. Every game, okay? And I was the captain of the team for the University of Pittsburgh. And I earned my Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering, Aeronautical Option, okay? And I can remember coming to Tulsa, and the head of the Urban League asked me what my major was. And I told him I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering, Aeronautical Option. He said, aeronautical who? Aeronautical what? I said, that deals with aircraft, you know what I mean. And I subsequently got a certificate of meteorology from St. Louis University's Graduate School of Meteorology, because the Air Force, I was in the ROTC, and they decided that I had to attend meteorology school to become a weather forecaster. So I forecasted the weather as a meteorologist in the Air Force for 2 years. I was stationed at Stead Air Force Base, Nevada, for 2 years. And I was in the 4th Weather Wing, okay? And after I got out of the service, I returned to Tulsa because I had been employed by the Douglas Aircraft Company. I started working as an engineer for the Douglas Aircraft Company in 1958. And I subsequently worked for the Douglas Aircraft Company and McDonnell Douglas for 31 years, okay? And then I worked another 10 years for American Airlines. And then I've been a consulting designated engineering representative for the FAA for the past 15 years. And that's what I'm still doing. It's worked out pretty good. See, when I graduated from high school at Booker T, I already had 2 buddies who were going to the University of Michigan, majoring in engineering. Wayne Hicks is an aerodynamicist, and Otterly Stubblefield is an electrical engineer, but they both graduated from Michigan because there were no schools in Oklahoma that we could go to where we could get engineering degrees. The only school we could go to in Oklahoma was Langston University at that time. So we chose to go out of state. I just happened to get a basketball scholarship at the University of Pittsburgh after I paid my own way the first semester there. They gave me a scholarship. Okay, I had tried to get a scholarship to Carnegie Tech, which is in Pittsburgh also, but I scored like 91 on one of the competitive tests that they had, and I scored above 95 on the others, but that eliminated me from the competition because those scholarships are really good scholarships and they are really tough to get. But it worked out pretty good. So I've been here in Tulsa, and I served on, I was the chairperson of the Target Area Action Group, which was the citizens' participation component for Tulsa's Model Cities program. And I was the 3-time chairman of that organization, and we planned this whole area that we're sitting in now. Okay, we planned this whole area over there where OSU is and where Langston is. We did all of the planning. And the city of Tulsa was recognized as one of the cities having one of the best citizens participation groups in the United States. Yeah, yeah. And I've served as the chairman of the Tulsa Airport Authority, and I've served as the chairman of the Tulsa Development Authority, and I've also served as the chairperson of the John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation for 10 years. And I was the chairperson when we built the John Hope Franklin Reconciliation Park, you know. And I'm a person, I love my hometown, and I want to be here just trying to make it better for everybody. That's my primary goal, is to try and make Tulsa a better place for everyone who desires to live here. And I do. So.
I'm going to back up.
Okay.
Back to the 21 Race Riot. As far as the living conditions for the survivors of African Americans was
Very poor.
Deplorable.
Yeah.
What was the response from the political system, political structure to assist
There was no response. They received very little help from the political system, okay? Because when the race riot occurred, shortly thereafter they passed a law that said you could not compensate anyone for any damage they received during a riot. So consequently, there was no recovery and no assistance from the state of Oklahoma or the city of Tulsa for the victims of the riot. Now, there's one thing that I take my hat off to, and that is the numerous kind individuals here in the city of Tulsa who gave a helping hand to those people who suffered this tragedy. Okay, we have a lot of good people living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay, and people reached out to help those people who had gone, who had undergone this traumatic event that occurred here. I mean, the help coming from individuals, like there were people working on the South Side who the people they were working for wouldn't even let them come back home. No, you can't go back over there tonight or tomorrow because, that's just too much going on. And they sheltered them, Okay? And so that's what makes Tulsa a unique place. That makes Tulsa a unique place. Like the Broadhurst Foundation, stepping up, providing money for the rebuilding of the Mount Zion Baptist Church. Okay? And the Zarros had a store. There's a picture of the Zarro store right back on that wall there. That was right down in the heart of Greenwood. They opened a store right down in the heart of Greenwood.
And that was because they couldn't open a store in downtown Tulsa. Right,
and they have supported this community for years. Didn't just start. You know, it didn't just start. My uncles knew the Zarros. Okay?
Yeah.
So I can't say enough about those individuals that we have living here in Tulsa, all of the way up to today, who are willing to assist people less fortunate than them. Okay, now, but the political system, I don't have much to say about the political system assisting anyone who is harmed. Okay.
And the Red Cross?
The Red Cross sent people from St. Louis in here to assist. And they set up, the only building that wasn't damaged was the school building.
And that
new structure, that was a new brick building, and that's where the Red Cross set up shop. They set up their aid station in the schoolhouse. Yeah. So, Tulsa is a unique place. Tulsa is a unique place. And even back then, there were individuals here who were assisting children to go to school out of state because to get certain, to major in certain things because you couldn't go here in this state. Yeah, I know people who assisted children going to Notre Dame and to different colleges.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes, those are stories you don't hear.
You don't hear about those.
Yes.
You don't hear stories about the good things that happen. And we would not be this far alone, on this journey without those people. Yes. And they're just people who help, and you never hear very much about the help that they give. But we've had help to get us from there to here. Yeah. See, and that's evidenced more by the fact that the state said they would give us up to $5 million for this reconciliation part. Okay? But Don Ross told me, he said, Julius, he said, let me tell you, when the other group takes over, you won't get another penny from the state. They had given us $3.7 million. We had a $5 million project. Okay? And we did it for under $5 million. But when they took over, we never got another dime. But the people here in Tulsa, the citizens in Tulsa, along with the mayor, Mayor Kathy Taylor, they stepped up to the plate and provided the other $1.3 million plus in order for us to complete the portico. Okay? So, and we don't, we don't cast any dispersions on people who fail to fulfill their commitment, but we recognize, okay, that when you start something, they might not follow through on it. Okay? And so we have to find alternative solutions to help us be successful. And there's always someone out there willing to help.
Now, Julius, you had shared with us a lot of noteworthy personal accomplishments, but you were an African American male that was raised during Jim Crow and the days of segregation. Could you share with us some how you overcome a lot of obstacles?
Oh, well, yeah, you have to have good teachers. See, you have to have good teachers who inspire you to do bigger and better things. And that's what has gotten a lot of us this far, because we had the finest teachers anywhere directing us in the direction that they thought would be beneficial to us and to our life. And that's the most important thing that you can have, you know. And I can recall that John Hope Franklin, if he got close to Tulsa, anywhere in the area, he was going to stop by Booker T. Washington High School and talk to us. And he can speak. He can motivate you. Okay? And that's what it takes. And I look at some of our children now who don't have, you know, people who motivate them. They just go to a school building and then they go back home. But you see, back when I was coming up, we had people who were interested in us. Okay? And they motivated us to do bigger and better things. Okay? And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to be successful in this life. Okay? And we had the finest English teachers. We had the finest shop teachers. You know, we had the finest science teachers. Okay? Who knew how to teach black children. Okay? They knew how to teach black children. You know, my math teachers, they could work a math problem 3 or 4 different ways. If you didn't understand it this way, they could give it to you another way. If you didn't understand that way, they'd give it to you another way. They could break it down so that in the end, you understood it. And it never leaves you. It never leaves you. Okay? And so I just wish that we, you know, could get back to some of that. And our students, we could walk in a classroom and you could hear a pin drop. Okay? First order of business is you got to be paying attention to what the teacher's saying in order to learn something. You know? And you didn't have kids walking around with their pants hanging off of their hind part, and you know what I mean. And it just didn't. They taught us that you come to school to learn, and you have to be looking presentable at all times. At all times. Okay. And the primary function of the schoolhouse is what? To learn something. See, and it worked then, and I know it'll work now if we just could get it going. Get it going.
Question about reconciliation. That is the primary goal of the John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation. Right. In this diverse environment in which Tulsa has today, what is your perception of how possibly we could obtain that?
Well, it's not an easy task, and it's not something that you can do overnight. It is something that is going to take education. See, you have to educate people. And once they're educated on the benefits of reconciling your differences so that you can work together to make a better city, a better state, and a better country, then we will have moved closer to our goal of being a diverse city, a diverse state, and a diverse nation, where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Okay? And everyone will have the respect of individuals. Respect them for what they are. Okay? Okay? And if we can achieve that with the John Hope Franklin Center, then we will have accomplished something major. Something really, really major. Because, you see, we could have talked about the race riot in our community day in and day out, and we wouldn't have achieved anything. Because what? It's all in our community. The conversation has to take place between the south side and the north side, the east side and the west side, in order for us to reconcile our differences. I have, or people have animosity toward other people because they probably don't know anything about those people. They don't have a perception that's positive for other people. And the only way we can bring that about is what? Through communication with one another. Okay, so you don't like this, okay? And you don't like this. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And let's see if we can reconcile whatever the differences are. And that's what John Hope Franklin Center is all about. That's what we're going to try to accomplish. We want Tulsa to be the best place in this country. That's what we want Tulsa to be, where people are open, exchanging ideas, okay, talking about their differences, trying to make Tulsa a better place.
Now, as chairperson of John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation, and this is the final question, what is your ultimate vision for the park and for the center?
Oh, my ultimate vision for the park and for the center is for the park to be a teaching tool where people can come and learn about the past. Because if you know something about the past, then you can move forward in the future better. And the center itself is the exchange of ideas and the creation of communication between individuals, between organizations, between the city and its citizens. So we want to get that communication going and education going, because education, what? Opens up your mind. Okay? Education opens up your mind whereby you can have a better conversation with somebody, and it eliminates a lot of stereotypes and other things that exist that keep people from coming together, let's say just to achieve a common goal. So that's what we want to do here. We want the city of Tulsa to be the reconciliation capital of the world. We want everybody from all over the world coming here to talk about resolving our differences. That's our goal. That's my goal. Okay. I got a big goal for my city. But I think we can get there. But you aren't going to ever get there unless you work on it.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Okay?
Julius Peguese,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.